In the last video, we refactored our API and our controller to use a service, as you can see right here. Do you remember in the last video, I showed you, or I said something. I said that this is a bad practice. Why is it a bad practice? Well, imagine you're calling this endpoint multiple times. So whenever you call this endpoint API news article, you can see it's a new date. You can do it again, 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 do it again. Now you have to remember that basically the server, which are hosting everything, is responsible for dealing with memory and having enough storage. So let's go back to the drawing board again. All right, so let's think of the server like this. It has some memory. Think of it like this, as a rack of different memories. And it has, some hard drives. And it also has CPU. And the memory here stands for RAM. The hard drive could be SSD and different type of drives in a NAS system. Network access storage could be, or it could also be directly in the server. The thing though is that whenever we go to the website, we say, please give me news articles. That's fine. We ask the server to give us news articles. The server delivers, and it delivers news articles to us. So we have different news articles with different IDs and so on. The problem though is that whenever we actually hit the mouse, my way of trying to draw a mouse, sorry, but whenever you hit the mouse or enter the keyboard, the enter keyboard, then whenever we do those things, we're basically saying that we want something new all the time. So whenever we click here, refresh, refresh, or click on the mouse, refresh, 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 then what we are doing is that we are calling this method again. So remember, we hit refresh, 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 refresh. So I think you get the point. We're now calling the same method multiple times. And we are getting back the same information, but it has to fetch it. And as you can see here, we are saying var news article service is equal to new news article service. What is actually going on underneath the hood here is that whenever we hit the enter, the server has to create some place in the memory. So let's think of this as the memory. And whenever we basically ask the server to deliver us the page of news articles, it has to create a new service all the time. And if the machine doesn't have that much of memory, you can see it becomes cumbersome, because it is only when the server is shut down that the machine will be freed up of memory. So if we don't shut down the machine and we call the same method again, then it will be a new instance created of service until we get Stack Overflow or something along those lines. Because the stack hasn't any possibility anymore to do what it needs to do, and therefore we get an overflow and we run out of memory. So that's the website Stack Overflow. Now you can see more what it means. So why do it not like this? Well, you probably get it, because if we are creating multiple service all the time, then the server, we don't care if it's hosted in the United States or if it's a local host machine. The problem though is that whenever place this is hosted, could be in Amazonas, I don't know, but it will still run out of memory because we are moving up the service all the time. That's why this is a bad practice. So what should we do instead? So if we take a look at this Stack Overflow post here, so as you can take a look at this blog post here from Stack Overflow, you can see that they're basically talking about transient objects, scoped objects, and singleton objects. And first I want to show you what it says about transient objects. So it says that transient objects are always different. A new instance is provided to every controller and every service, while a scoped object are the same within a request, but it's different across different requests. So meaning when it's different requests, it will create a new instance, which is making more sense because transient objects, they will always be different, meaning you have to always create another service each time you call it. And a singleton is the same for every object and every request. This can lead into issues sometimes because a singleton can be occupied and can be memory problems. So you need to know which one you have to use in order to successfully be able to use it. So transient object is the one that we will not be using. Same with the singleton. And the one that we will actually be using is the one called scoped object. So whenever we are inside of here, whenever we are inside of basically here, then we know that we are creating a new news article service each time this is called. So you could argue and say that this is kind of the same as transient. So we will not do it like this. We would instead have to use something called dependency injection. Dependency injection means that we will get the dependencies whenever we need them. So let's start off by creating a constructor here. And you can see it says parameters. What we would like to do here is actually take an I news article service. And we can call it news article service, just like that. And we need to instantiate it the way it wants it to be instantiated. The problem though is that this interface, it doesn't exist yet. We need to create it. So if you go back here to the services, we can create another file inside of here and say I news article service. We are using an interface because it's easier when it comes to testability later on. So if we split it right, we can take a look at, just close it for now, we can take a look at the news article service and we can see that we are returning a list of news article. So let's just copy this here, the whole thing, whole shebang, and put it in here. But before we put it in here, we need to say that this is an interface, so we need a namespace. We will say C# app services, and we could say interfaces if we would like, but we will just have it in services for now. Then we can do exactly what it asks us to do. We want a list of news article, and the interface name or the method name the interface will hold is get news articles. So you can see exactly what we have here. So we can then click on the bubble again, or whatever this is, the light bulb, and we can use C# app models. So now our interface has this method. It will return a list of news article, and the name is get news articles. All is good. The thing now is that whenever we are in the controller, we are saying, okay, please give us an instance of iNews article service. iNews article service is the interface, but we would actually like to talk to the implementation, not just the interface. But we are using this because it's easier to swap out when it comes to testing. Now I'm going to show you how we can register this so that the dependency injection knows about it. The container will know that we want an instance of this. So we have to do this in the beginning of the program. So if we go to the program CS here that you can see, then you can notice this program CS. Oh, here you go. This program CS, it is the one we want to go inside of. And inside of here, let me just hide it. Inside of here, we can register a dependency. So you can see it says builder.services add swagger generation. We can also do builder.services.add. Remember back to this guy, transient, scoped, and singleton. We would like the scoped because it's the same within a request, but it's different across different requests. So add scoped like that. And Copilot is helping us along the way. So we would like an iNews article service. And we want a comma here to show that the implementation should be a news article service. Whenever we do this, then the program will know what we would like to have. So you can see it's not found. So we actually need to use it up here. So we can say using, and then we can say C# app.services, and it should be happy. So now it's complaining about something else. So let's take a look at it. So it says this type C# app cannot be used as a type parameter. You know why? Because this news article service is not implementing the interface. So we need to go inside of the news article service and explicitly say that, hey, we would like to implement the iNews article service. And then it will be happy. So we could actually just get rid of this and just do it like that instead. That could also work. Then we would have to change out the controller to not use the interface, but just use the news article service instead. That would be fine. But it's better in a way to actually use the interface and say that the implementation is the one we would like. Because think about it. If we have it like this, and we have the same interface, and then we find out that, oh, we want a different implementation, then we can have fake news article service in here, as you can see, but we don't need to change out anything in our controller because it can just stay exactly the same. The interface will be the same. We don't need to change the implementation because the container is responsible for knowing which instance it would use. So here we would like to use news article service, just like that. So whenever we have registered this in the program.cs, then the news article controller can actually get hold of this, and whenever the dependency injection does its thing, it says, oh, it's an interface of iNews article service. Okay, I should give back a news article service. And that's actually what happens. So, but when we talk to it, we only get the interface methods, and that's actually what we would like to have happening. So for now, we have get news articles here. And what we would like to do is that we would like to basically say up here, private read only iNews article service. And then we can use this underscore to say that this is a private. And then if we want, we can have read only. We don't need to, but we can have it. And then we can say news article service, just like this, is equal to news article service, because now we are setting this private variable here to be equal to the dependency injection type of thing variable that we get from the container. That's what's happening here. Again, that was a lot of technical difficulties or technical difficulties. But basically what we did was that we set it up a way of the program to know that we want an dependency. So we say to the program.cs file, hey, we would like to register a dependency called iNewsArticleService. And whenever we want to get this dependency, we would like to get the instance of NewsArticleService. And whenever we do that correctly, we can use the constructor the way .NET Core have set it up to actually get the instance, but we are not getting it magically from whatever where. We're actually getting it from a container, which I will show you right now. So the program.cs has something called register, and then we have add scoped, because scoped was the one we actually wanted to use, where we put the interface here and we put the class in here. That's the instance. But how can you think about it? Well, just think about it this way. Whenever you are inside of news article controller, inside of that class, you usually have this constructor. The constructor is the one thing that's called whenever the class is initiated. And whenever it is initiated, we tell the constructor, hey, I will draw the constructor, news article controller, like that. We tell it, hey, inside of these parameters, we would like an iNews article and then a service, right? But how does it really work? Where do we get all this information from? Well, the crucial step here is that we have already registered that information inside of program.cs. Because whenever we say that add scoped, add this service, we're actually saying that we would like to add this to the registration container. So we can think of it like we have a container here that just holds a bunch of information, and somewhere in here we say that, oh, whenever we want the news article service, we would like to get it from the container. So the container is kind of like a mapping. It knows what it needs, and it knows that the iNews article should be a news article. So the container kind of lives in the application. We can always have access to the container, but the constructor is actually the one that has access to the container. So behind the scenes, C# or .NET Core, the framework is more correct to say, knows how to communicate with this container. Inside of this container, we can have a bunch of dependencies. We can have hundreds, we can have more, we can have whatever we would like to have. Because these dependencies are only created in the way we would like them to be created. Because add scope basically says that whenever we get a request, it will be the same. But if we get another request which are different from that, it will be created. And the add transient would just give you a new one all the time. And then you have the same problem as we talked about, because the server which are here has problems of basically newing up that service because it doesn't have any memory again, and you will have problem, you will have Stack Overflow, you will have memory leakage, and basically you will not just have memory leakage, in more correct terms to say, it would be out of memory because you don't have anything. So instead of doing that, what would happen now is that whenever we click on enter, when we are using add scoped, the program knows that whenever we hit get me news articles, please, it knows that, okay, we have registered add scope, so it doesn't need to provide us a new service all the time. That's cool, because then we don't have the problem which we talked about originally. We actually can just get rid of all this stuff. It's not there because it only needs one service now and not hundreds of them. That's kind of the way dependency injection is working behind the scenes, and you can now see why it's beneficial, because it's just the way it goes when it comes to using .NET Core, and that's the preferred way instead of newing up the service all the time. It's also better for testing, unit testing, integration testing, you name it, because now we have said that we can register the interface, but we can swap it out with whatever class we would like to swap it out with. And just to give you a recap on that, what I mean is that when we are in program.cs, we register iNews article service, and here we could have fake news article service. But the program would do exactly the same thing inside of here, because we wouldn't need to do any things differently. The only thing is it's red now only because that this one is of course not anything. But that could really work, and it would be easier than to do testing, which we will see later on in more deeper videos. But I think this is enough for this video, because it's so much information you need to take in. But hopefully you learned something new here and you start to understand the way it works. Before we conclude the video, I would like to just show you what actually happened. So now we have registered news article service, and instead of using news article service, we can now use underscore news article service, and we can get the news articles. So you can see now we have got rid of this var news article service. We are instead getting it from a dependency injection container, which I showed you in the drawing board. And now when we do call the application, if everything is set up correctly the way we have done here, then we should get exactly the same result as we had. So let's just take a look at that before we conclude. So now we have launched the website, and if we go back here now, we can do that, and then we can do API news article. And you can see it's the same thing, same result, coming from the same service, exactly the same service, but the only thing which is different is the way we have registered it. We are not newing it up anymore like we did here. Instead, we are registering it in the program.cs in the start of the program, and the container now knows that whenever it needs that news article service, it will provide us that from the container. So it kind of looks some bit magical for some ways, but when you now know the underlying structure is basically a dependency container which has a mapping towards the correct service and the correct interface, it's not that advanced after all. And that's why we can just use constructor magic and say iNews article service, and then get this service, because whenever we run the program, this is actually initiated because it's coming from the container. Congratulations for sticking to the end. That was an advanced video, and I kept it at 22 minutes just to see how my viewers think about it. If you like that type of long videos, or if you want it to be more like 5 to 8 to 10 minutes. But it was a bit technical and I wanted you to really let it sink in. So good job for sticking to the end. Keep going. I'm sure you will get the hang of it.